Okay, we're watching the legendary Nikachu's top 10 modern video. Let's see how accurate he is or where we disagree with. Let's see.
Have to beat in today's modern metagame, and we now have seen the best Modern Horizon 2 decks rise to the top.
Anything with Monkey, Forced Negation, or Urza Saga is a must. If you're not playing those three cards, you're so far behind the format, honestly.
Has the D&D Forgotten Realms set had any impact on Modern? Well,
No.
sort of, but not really.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get
Definitely.
into our top 10. Starting off with number 10, the food decks. The food decks? What are you talking about? Wasn't that number 1 last month? And you know what? That might be true, but there's been a lot of competition for these food decks.
So, like, I definitely agree with how it was last month, because comparing this to now, when it first came out, I honestly thought Urza Saga was too insane and it'll be banned within like a month or two. But then the format adapted, it grew, it changed, and I agree. Like, I was like, oh my goodness, Urza Saga, get out of here. And now it just like, it's playable. It's not great. Like, it's something you can do, but Asmo last month seemed like the deck to play, and now it's just like nobody plays it anymore.
And I think they might have stretched themselves very thin on all the types of different variations that they were being developed on. Now let me explain. Now first off, the deck has so much synergy, so much grind, it's beautiful. But the one thing that it doesn't have, which is pretty important in Modern right now, is speed. There's a lot of decks that are coming out to kill you really quickly, and if you do not have that ability to kill really quickly in response, or even just put the pressure on in the first place, that's where the food decks fall behind. You can gain so much life with food, nobody cares. You have to be at least be able to get some damage going on against the opponent. And another thing that I think has hurt people really jumping onto the food decks is the fact that it's been spliced off into so many different iterations. You know, one day it's Golgari, then another week it is Izzet, then Grixis, and now it's going mono red. Which is the best variation? People are like, I'm not too sure.
I agree, and I think that's one thing. It's just like they're trying to scramble for anything that sticks and fits, because I don't think it's a very good deck anymore, honestly.
And the databases have
like it'll still win, it's playable, but it's not the insane pedestal that we once had it on.
Them so split off. Well, I'll just go with Black Red Ragavan, or I'll go with like Izzet Prowess, or Izzet Tempo, or Hammer Time, or something else. So I think the fact that no one could come to a consensus made it to a point where people were just less interested in piloting this thing, but it's still a powerful deck, and you still have to be prepared, because at any moment people just bring it out of nowhere and play the food deck in Modern. So I have it as number 10. Moving on to number 9.
I agree with number 10 fully.
Mill.
Now, no, oh my. Okay, throughout the whole, this should not be in your top. This deck, maybe it beats Merfolk, but this deck is the buy. I will freaking play against this 100 out of 100 times. You throw one Emrakul on your sideboard, you just call this thing the buy. Like, holy, no. Mill is not Mill never beats Merfolk. Yeah. What, Mill? You put Mill on your effing, are you kidding? I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Probably the only archetype that got some genuinely serious upgrade, and it got it through Tasha's hideous laughter from Forgotten Realms.
It says it on the card that the card is hideous. Oh, like, okay, we'll keep going.
And for a double blue and one generic, each opponent exiles cards from the top of
It's not a best decks list, it's a decks to beat list. Well, you don't even gotta beat it, it just loses. What's the name of this video? Top 10 modern decks to beat? What does that mean? Like 10 things I go to FNM and expect to beat?
their library until that player has exiled cards with total mana value 20 or more. Oh my god, in today's Modern metagame with the mana efficiency, you're gonna be dumping a huge chunk of your deck. I mean, it's just all gonna go to the graveyard. It's possible to go through 30 cards. I mean, you look at the converted mana cost of stuff in those Ragavan decks, the Darcy decks, the the Hammer Time decks. It's like 0-1. You can go through a ton of cards. It's like taking off like a huge chunk of your opponent's life, but in mill form. So mill, it's a deck that's gotten a lot of upgrades over the last.
We literally just played a league with Luris, Grixis, DRC, and Rogvon, and we played against Mill two of the 5 matches. It wasn't even close for either of them. I don't think we even lost a game, and it's just so bad against all these 1-mana threats, and they turn on Delirium, and it's just, I think Mill's actually just a complete joke, honestly. Even if you're playing those listed decks, maybe for Hammer Time, but like that's okay if Hammer Time has a bad matchup, because Hammer Time's insane, honestly.
Last year, it has momentum, and this is a card that has pushed it a little bit further. And because that it's a new upgrade for this archetype, I do believe that you have to be prepared for Mill. And I already see.
Okay. I agree with that. You do have to dedicate a slot, maybe, but that only depends on what deck you're playing. Like blue-white, sure, play Eldrazi in the side. I agree with that you can prepare to beat it, and you make it a buy. So it's very easy to prepare to beat going to your local FNM, and I probably would honestly lose a sideboard slot just so you can have Mill be a buy. So it is a deck to beat, and you have to mildly prepare for it, but you don't need it. You can still win without that tightening your side.
The preparation. I see those Emrakul's in your sideboard. I absolutely see them.
Yep.
You know, you got to respect Mill in 2021. Coming in at number 8, Stoneblade, Orzhov Stoneblade. Now, what's interesting about the Stoneblade decks is that they're actually just splicing off into many different directions, but staying in Orzhov. You know, we've got the variations that are very value-centric with Ephemerate. They're playing with Grief. They're playing with Solitude. They've got like that blinking synergy. I mean, you play the Stoneforge Mystic. You get the Cauldron Complete. And you want the Batterskull? All right, Ephemerate your Stoneforge Mystic. Go get the Batterskull. Ephemerate comes back. Okay, go get Maul of the Skyclaves or Sword of Fire and Ice or something else. You have that ability through the value route. You could go, but there's other people going like a Reanimator route where they're playing with Priest of Fell Rites and the Reanimator package. It's crazy. And then you have other variations, just maybe more of the classic Death and Taxes looking like shell, just trying to be a classic Orzhov Stoneblade deck playing with Dothy Voidwalker. So there's many different variations and ways of going about the classic.
I think Stoneforge is really fallen out of favor, honestly. And it's because of Monkey. I think because you're forced to play so much removal, it really hinders you playing Stoneforge when all the 1-mana removal takes care of it. I just don't think Stoneforge is a very good card at the moment. It's like a 2-for-1, but Modern's just too quick and efficient now for it. Like, what would you rather do? Play a Stoneforge to dump 2 mana to play it? Maybe it dies, maybe it lives, with another 2 mana to put the artifact into play, and they just go 1 mana DRC and then run over the game with it.
Stoneforge Mystic turn 2, go get a weapon, put the weapon in play, and then start sniping things down in front of you. It still works in 2021, and that's why I have Stoneblade, Orzhov Stoneblade, as number
Sniping
8.
things down.
So moving on to number 7, Amulet. Amulet's still around. I'm hearing some pains from the Amulet community.
You gotta prepare for Amulet,
it's not
honestly.
so easy out there for those Amulet players. There's some competition out there. Not to mention, the metagame's fast. Can go blow right over them with these Ragavan decks, the Prowess decks, the Hammer Time decks. You go fast, go big, go home. They have to deal with free interaction. Hey, the subtleties, the solitudes that come out of the elemental decks, the Stoneblade decks, that's a big deal. The mill decks are coming up. So they have to have that stupid Emrakul in their sideboard in order to deal with the mill decks. And sometimes that's not even enough, because that could get surgically extracted along with everything else in their deck, like the Primeval Titans, the Dryad of the Elysian Groves, the Valakuts. So, but the deck is super powerful. Primeval Titan entering the battlefield will generally be the end of the game for the opponent if they do not immediately have an answer to this thing. So it's still prevalent because it's still just a super raw powerful deck playing just super raw powerful cards, but getting a little pushed around. and therefore it's starting to move down in the ranks. Maybe it's still going to move down a little bit further, but the thing is, the deck is so adaptive. They have many other tools they have access to. They could go fast, they can slow down, being more controlling, and because of this versatility, I'm still going to have it as number 7 as one of the decks you have to beat in Modern.
I think it's right. Like, it used to be like super popular, but now it's fallen out of favor, and I think it's because of Hammer Time has pushed it back, and I think it's also because the loaded ground Izzet DRC Monkey has pushed it back. Yeah, we're back on Moto. So I would last month maybe put it like top 3. Now I could like 7 definitely. I barely see Amulet anymore. Like, you had to mildly prepare for it, but
moving on to
it's
number
around.
6, Izzet Prowess decks. Izzet Prowess is getting less popular, significantly less popular.
What? This is the most played deck. It's everywhere. And why? Because Monkey was 600 ticks. This one should be like top 3. This deck, I play it all the time. There's so many people on it because it's so cheap and is insanely strong. I did not expect this at 6. Bayesian, you missed it? My man. Ah!
Because of the rise of the Izzet Tempo Ragavan decks, the Murktide decks. Those decks are becoming the new best Izzet deck in Modern. But what if you don't want to play Ragavan? Because what if you don't want to spend like $100 or more on a card that could get banned? What if that is the case? Then maybe you can go to another deck that is pretty strong too. Izzet Prowess. It's still got all the tools. It also got an upgrade playing with Dragon Rage Channeler over their Sprite Dragon. So the deck is getting better. It got upgrades, and it's still very, very powerful. Lava Dart also has a very unique position in the metagame right now because more people are playing with 1-drops than ever before. If that Dragon Rage Channeler doesn't have Delirium, pew! If that Ragavan hits turn 1, pew! That Ragavan hits turn 10, pew! And also, Hammer Time has like tons of 1 toughness creatures between the Memnite, between Inkmoth Nexus. If they're playing Esper Sentinel, that thing can get shot down. So it looks like maybe Lava Dart has like a pretty good spot right now, especially since how it interacts with the top decks. It also kills Risen Reef. So don't count Prowess out. Maybe it is well positioned with their removal suite. That's why we've got Izzet Prowess, number 6.
I think Gutshot is actually very playable. So like, I super agree with everything you said about Izzet. I think it deserves a higher placing in decks to you need to beat, because I think the big factors to why people go to it is because Ragavan is so expensive, and this deck is so much cheaper without Ragavan. But definitely Gutshot is playable in this format. Aspiring Spike beat me last night with Gutshot when I had my Monkey. It was so sad.
And to be prepared for in today's Modern metagame. Moving on to number 5. I can't even believe I'm saying this. Elementals.
It's so true though. Like, I thought Elementals were complete garbage, and they were until this set, and the set boosted them up with Solitude and Endurance and Fury. And oh my goodness. I played it once. Someone did a Dono deck. I went 5-0 with it. I was just flabbergasted. I was like, wait, this actually feels really good now because of the free spells with the draw. It's actually, this deck, I would have prepared for someone to have it. Like, if someone comes to FNM with this deck, you're going to play against them over and over because that's now their baby. It's not a cheap, oh, I have all these pieces. You have to go get these random elementals and play them. Everybody loves free spells. You have to prepare to beat this deck.
The elemental deck has been given a huge boost by just adding all the new elementals. All the new evoke elementals that came from Modern Horizons 2. The elemental players are like, how do we use these cards? Oh, we're just gonna play all of them. So
you know what? I think the elemental players were the Merfolk players. I think the Merfolk players got sick of losing and were like, oh my goodness, that thing's in water. That's a Merfolk, and then you switch over to that. I think that's where all the elemental players came from, honestly.
So all of them, they are free. Solitude, Subtlety, Endurance, Fury. They're not playing Grief. They're playing, you know, the ones that they can use very well. It's mostly a 4-color deck. Some people are calling it 5. The databases are calling it 5 because they might have something like Fulminator Mage in the sideboard. But basically, it's a 4-color elemental deck. And it's being completely fueled by the Risen Reef. Because whenever Risen Reef or another elemental enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, put it on the battlefield, so it's ramp. If it's not, you can just put it directly into your hand. Now, this is what's really good about this, is because if you play something like Solitude, that's supposed to be a 2-for-1. When you play Solitude, isn't that supposed to be a 2-for-1? You're supposed to pitch a card from your hand. That's the disadvantage, to be able to evoke this thing into play. But here's the deal. If you've got Risen Reef on the battlefield, it's no longer card disadvantage, because when the Solitude enters the battlefield, Risen Reef's going to trigger. So you're going to get a land, or you're going to get a card put into your hand. So it's completely win-win. So they can do that with all the cards. And they can tutor this thing from their deck. They've got the 1-mana tutor. They got a 1-mana Vampiric Tutor. In the form of the elementals for the elemental deck, they get to use Voice of Resurgence, Unsettled Manor, but
what's the 1-mana called?
Omnath can be pitched to all these elemental cards. So I mean, they've got great synergy. It looks clunky and slow, but fact of the matter is, like, if you don't do anything about the Risen Reef, they'll completely take over, completely bury you in card advantage. Not to mention, Omnath by itself could be a huge problem.
He's talking about Flanking Harbinger, where it's a 1-mana 1/1 ETB, tutor a elemental put on top of your library. And so that card is insane because its consistency is nuts. The only problem is you don't have anything to ramp you, really. So if you need lands, it's a worthless 1/1. But it combos really well with Risen Reef because you go Risen Reef and you stack it where you put Risen Reef trigger on first and then the Flamekin. And so you tutor up your Fury or Solitude, whatever you need, and then the Risen Reef will draw you it. So it's a 1-mana D-tutor at that point with Risen Reef out.
So Elemental's slowly creeping up, gets more and more playable over time. He's putting up more and more results. I have it as number 5 for one of the decks you have to beat in Modern. Moving on to number 4, the Crashing Footfall decks. I don't really understand, honestly. There's like a lot of cascade.
Can I just say that, like, how far Modern has come, that we're okay with a 3-mana 10/10 in the format, or instant speed 8/8 with trample. Like, that is just like, yeah, you know, I'll handle that, no biggie, and like we're doing it. That is something in this format that is okay. Is turn 3 10/10. It's unreal how much stronger Modern is now that we're okay with that.
Decks in the metagame. I'm not quite sure why this is just the best one, especially since it just puts.
It's the best one because the other ones get interacted with way easier attacking graveyards. Everybody has graveyard hate, but people, they have to have Chalice to hate this out. Instant speed with Force Negation, but being able to go turn 1. Not Grafter's Cage, going turn 1, the lantern that exiles. Yeah, it's actually nuts. So I think like that is why Footfalls is a preferred deck over the Living End iterations, because it's way easier to attack people's graveyards than to deal with the raw 8/8.
It's like 8 power in play. I mean,
also because you can turn 1 suspend it is way better than being stuck with Living End in your hand. The other one's more combo based. This one's more just raw value and interacts very well, having free counters and also tempo with Fire and Ice.
Living End can do far worse, but on the other hand, it's not hit by any hate cards, so it's just good, clean value. That endurance card is seeing play in like Primeval Titan decks. It's seeing play in the Elemental deck. It's in the main deck. So your graveyard is not safe in Modern. Not to mention, you know, like Dothy Voidwalker from any deck playing black also puts a hurt on those Living End decks, because if anything gets discarded into the graveyard, it just gets exiled and is now Dothy Voidwalker food. So perhaps that is why the Crashing Footfall decks, you go Shardless Agent into Crashing Footfalls. All right, what hate cards do you have for me? Oh, you're playing like Voidmere or something? Well, that's sort of cute, but it only hits this one card, and I still have the Shardless Agent. Your synergy sucks. Not to mention I can just deal with it with Brazen Borrower. So the Cascade decks, or this particular Cascade deck has really stood the
Voidwalker
test
cannot
of time.
cast
I'm
it.
actually really impressed. I thought it would just be sort of a cute deck that would just get pushed right the hell out by the more powerful combo-ish decks. But this is the one that ends up being the best, probably because it's resistant to most of the hate. So, I mean...
Wait. No. Voidwalker can cast it. Because you cast it without paying its mana cost. Yeah, you can cast using Void. I was thinking of a different interaction, but yeah, it can cast. Sorry, we'll keep going.
Hey, bust out your Brazen Borrowers, your
Monkey cannot
agents,
cast Footfalls. That's what I'm thinking
time
of.
for the crashing Footfalls to crash through Modern. So I have it as number 4. Moving on to number 3, the black-red Lurrus Ragavan decks. Whatever, the black-red mid-range decks.
Yeah.
They are playing Dothi Voidwalker. They play Kroxa. It's Jund. Like, if you want to play Jund in 2021, you just play this damn thing.
No.
Not super mid-range. Like, they get some stuff out in front.
Don't compare it to Jund. Jund is actively the buy. This deck is so much better than Jund. Like, think of the difference between, like, Izzet Prowess and Merfolk. That's the difference between this deck and Jund. Like, that's the gap that we're dealing with here. This is not Jund. This is a deck that actually has positive win rates.
They're playing with Dragon Rage Channeler, but still, it's the most, I think, Jund-esque type deck without being too clunky. And seriously, it's not too clunky. They're not moving too far in the 3 and the 4 drops. Because they don't have any for Lurrus, but they got to be mana efficient, which you need to do in today's modern metagame, and they've got the tools. Like Dothi Voidwalker is fantastic. Make your opponent discard Primeval Titan. All right, sacrifice this. Take control of their Primeval Titan. Go get him. It's main deck graveyard hate. No wonder Living Hand is basically going into retirement. They got to deal with this crap. The Black-Red Ragavan deck it's quite strong. Invented by Aspiring Spike. I mean, this guy's basically the modern metagame. He just makes a deck, and now it's like basically a staple. It has had a lot of success, a lot of people trying to hate on it. Very difficult to do so. I mean, I get Chalice of the Void out maybe sometimes. You Inquisition, Kozilek, or Thoughtseize the damn thing. If it resolves, there's still Kolaghan's Commands and Abrades to deal with it. So it has actually very few fears. And it's just efficient. Turn 1 Ragavan into so much value, and the whole
he's
thing
talking
with
about
Dragon Rage
Spike
Channeler,
initially pioneering
discarding
the
cards off
black-red
the top of your deck, discarding things like Kroxa is just card advantage in my opinion. So, and of course Lurrus and Mishra's Bauble is just the icing on the cake. This is one of the best decks you have to be prepared for. It's like Jund on steroids. All you have to do is remove green, get rid of that Tarmogoyf, go all in on Rakdos. Number 3 for you to beat in Modern right now. Moving on to number 2. Boom! The blue-red Murktide decks. Basically, the modern-day Delver.
What's number 1?
You don't have Delver, you have Dragon Rage Channeler. You don't have
Hammer Time.
You have Murktide Regent. And you're playing with Ragavan.
Yeah, Hammer Time.
But they're also starting to adopt the Dreadhorde Arcanist, which was a card that got banned in Legacy. The deck is still pretty mana efficient. It's got a lot of answers. It's playing with Counterspell. It's playing with Expressive Iteration for a really good card advantage. Some people are comparing Expressive Iteration to Treasure Cruise. It has so much value.
Who someone point me to a post comparing the two. I would never have thought of Expressive Iteration as Treasure Cruise. Treasure Cruise is 3 cards. Iteration is 2. No. Sorry.
Value attached to it. Not to mention, Murktide Regent can get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Bigger is better. That's all I always say, boys.
Get this in play with some number of +1/+1 counters. But then after that, it can get even larger it can get even larger if you keep removing stuff from the graveyard. Not many things can kill this.
It's
thing.
recall.
And it's funny because we're living in a world where we want interaction that's really mana efficient, that can deal with everything, but stuff like Path to Exile just ramps the opponent, so it puts your opponent in a lose-lose situation. So it doesn't really work there either. Do you want to play Path to Exile where 5% of the time it's going to be good against Murktide Regent, and then the rest of the time you're just ramping up your opponents? So the blue-red tempo deck, it's got all the tools of like Izzet Prowess more or less, but it it can play a tempo game. It can be patient. Doesn't need to go all in. It doesn't need to be playing its spells on their own turn. They can be more patient, and it's got the value. The only thing you gotta be worried about is like everything's a mythic rare. Murktide Region's a mythic rare. Ragavan's a mythic rare.
I don't know why he's worried about that. All we gotta do is take our mom's credit card and then go to cardholder.com, sponsored, and then just click add 4 to cart, add 4 Ragavan to cart, add 4 DRC. Oh, foil. Add 4 to cart, and then click buy. So I don't see why we're worrying here.
It's mythic rare tempo the deck. Anyway, I have it number 2 for one of the decks you have to beat in Modern. So before we get into the number 1 deck you have to be prepared for in Modern, if there are any of these decks you want to play, you can add.
If he says Merfolk, without joking, I'll donate him 100 subs.
Do that with Mana Traders, the premier place to rent Magic cards online. Modern's been fluctuating like crazy as one deck adapts to the next, and if you want to be on top of the Modern metagame week in and week out, you can do so by renting with Mana Traders and choose any deck you want. You can support the channel using my Mana Traders link in the description below, or save 15% off your first 2 months using coupon code Nikachu. So the number 1 deck that you have to be prepared for in the Modern metagame, undisputedly,
the best show could be
Merfolk. Hammer Time. Hammer Time has completely.
He had to think about it. He had to think. Look. He had to think about it.
Undisputedly is.
He's thinking. He's not sure. He's like, do I say Merfolk? I know Squad Chief would bet that I wouldn't. And then we had to do a whole. He had to cut the thing because he had to go pick one.
Hammer Time.
Then,
Hammer
boom!
Time has completely taken over. It has turn 2 kills. It has very consistent turn 3 kills.
With Merfolk, we all got debated that Rashad and Portwalker would be playable. That thing is such hot garbage.
This deck is not only like one of the most mana efficient because it plays with literally 0 mana spells between Ornithopter and Memnite. The deck 100% is also littered
Hammer
with
Time
1
is the
mana
deck to
spells
beat.
between
100%.
Colossus Hammer, Sigarda's Aid, we've got Steel Shaper's Gift, and also you can consistently find the hammer between Steel Shaper's Gift and Stoneforge Mystic. So you're almost always going to have this hammer. Somewhere down the line, you have to be prepared for that hammer. If you're not prepared, you're going to get crushed, smushed like a little bug. I mean, if you have infinite life, this deck doesn't care. It just equips the damn Ink Moth Nexus with the Colossus Hammer and then goes to town. It's got the answers to the answers. The deck is actually insane at grinding out opponents as well because it does have access to Luris in the sideboard. And because of Sigarda's Aid, you can play Hammer at instant speed. It makes it very difficult for you to be playing with your removal spells. Not to mention some versions play with Giver of Runes. So if you've got the removal in hand, you're like, oh my god, I gotta burn it on the Giver of Runes, because if I don't burn it on Giver, then I won't be able to use it on the main creature anyway. It is the most represented deck in the Modern challenges and also is incredibly common in the leagues. They got upgrades too. Normally my Chalice of the Void on 1 should be able to destroy them, but not anymore because now they have access to things like Seal of Cleansing, also Prismatic Ending. They don't even need to splash a color to make that thing useful right now. So they've got a really powerful game plan that can kill you by turn 3 very comfortably. Also, they've got the tools to beat the tools that people are bringing in against them. And with that, and the fact that it's, I mean, the most mana efficient deck in.
Chaos on 1 turns off Prismatic Ending in a mono white deck. Oh boy, someone teach Tara how the card works. If you just paid 2 mana into it, its CMC is now 2. Sorry, we'll keep going.
In the format comparable to Classic Affinity, Hammer Time is hands down the number 1 deck that you need to either play or be prepared for, because
in case the video you guys don't see it, he said Chalice on 1 turns off Prismatic Ending in a mono white deck, and I just had to stop and had to correct it. So we'll keep going, but like that's why I'm laughing so hard. I was like, if you just paid 2 into it, its CMC's 2 and it gets around Chalice. That's why Chalice and Prismatic Ending are like the sickest combo.
is taking over Modern. Well, that's my video for today. Do you agree with my list? If you think I've missed anything that deserves to be on the top 10, let me know in the comments section below. Smash like for all the new Modern decks. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, or you're gonna be the next nail to Colossus Hammer.
100%. Great video. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe to Nikachu. He honestly has probably the best Modern videos out there. I can't think of anyone else that has like better quality and more effort put into it. So I would definitely smash subscribe to Nikachu. I'll put his link down below. And yeah, let me know what you guys think of our reaction, Andy, to the video. Very well done. And I agree with pretty much the whole list. I didn't know it was a Dex to beat. But yeah, hope you guys have a wonderful day.